No need to ask unless somebody objects. So review and approval of the minutes of the 27th of September. Anybody have any objections?
I have one amendment to the minutes. The minutes reflect this is masquerading as my husband Bill on his laptop. The minutes say that our meeting would be the 16th because that's what we agreed at our last meeting. I would like permission from the task force to add a one-line note at the foot of the minutes saying that the task force subsequently revised the date to the 17th, just so that our records are accurate. Is that something that everyone can agree? And with that, I hope the minutes were helpful. It was a joy to write down what we did last time. And although, I think we all have a lot of sorrow in our hearts at this moment in life, I think that this whole task force is a joy in and of itself. And I am honored to take the meeting minutes again tonight.
Thank you so much.
With your permission, I'll add that one line at the bottom.
Any objections from any task force members? Okay, hear none. We approve the change that was suggested. So now we go on to our item number 3 on our agenda, which is updates on assignments made last time around at the last meeting. I'm wondering, Jessica, if you made any headway with survey questions. That we are part of our mission is to conduct a survey of our residents as to their level of awareness and concern. And I wonder if you've given us some thoughts, Jessica, being the expert that you are in survey research, whether you have any suggestions you want to make.
I did, and I do. I think that before all of the events of the past 10 days occurred, I think I was going to be a bit more circumspect as it related to the questions. But I think now I was wondering, and I wanted to get people's thoughts about how pointed we can be and direct we can be about anti-Israel sentiment and how that is also anti-Semitism and conceptions related to that. I wanted, I have questions related to, have you yourself ever witnessed anti-Semitism? Have you personally been affected by anti-Semitism in terms of subjected to it? I have a lot of questions related to their exposure to recent anti-Semitic acts in Montgomery County, awareness, those types of things. And ask them general attitudinal questions about whether or not they believe anti-Semitism has increased, et cetera. But I guess, the most controversial thing I want to know about is, if people feel comfortable asking about whether or not they feel that recent anti-Israeli actions are also anti-Semitism, and put that out there for people.
Discussion, anybody have any thoughts about it?
Jess, you're suggesting asking if they believe that it is anti-Semitism or if they have experienced some sort of anti-Israeli.
Oh, sorry. I was just giving examples generally of questions. I'm going to submit like a form with all of the I'll submit I'm going to create like a Survey Monkey link, and then people can test it out. And if people have comments about it, I wasn't particularly worried about asking people about whether or not they've witnessed anti-Semitism or whether or not they're aware of recent acts in Montgomery County, like at Walter Johnson, I think it was, where they had the sign that was very grotesque. But I was concerned perhaps how people might perceive a question related to whether or not they believe anti-Semitism is the same thing as anti-Israeli sentiment or anti-Israel sentiment. So that was a concern that I had that I wanted to throw out there. I'm open to obviously all of the critiques as it relates to the other questions, but I think that's the most politically hot.
Would your question be direct? Is this like yes and no?
It'll be categorical. It'll be multiple choice. So it
Okay.
wouldn't be binary, yes or no. It would be, some would agree, very
Mhm.
strongly
Okay.
agree, etc.
And the question would be sort of, do you see anti-Israel sentiment as related to anti-Semitism?
Yes, it would be framed along those lines.
Okay. I think it's an important question.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, please.
Because
Hi.
I'm a little bit
Hi,
late.
Susan.
Hi, I'm
Susan
late to
Post.
this
Hi.
meeting and I missed most of the last one. Can somebody just tell me what this group is and is someone leading it and what is its mission? It's called a task force. I have a feeling you're supposed to be invited to be on it or something, which I wasn't. I just tuned in because I thought it was just a meeting. If somebody
going
could
to
give
be
me a
very-
Welcome, Susan.
sentence.
I'm gonna make it very, very brief, Susan, and then you and I can have a separate conversation.
Okay.
But it was a task force announcement. The council voted to establish a task force like this, taking the cue in part from Montgomery County, which also initiated an anti-Semitism initiative. I don't know what it's called, at which I have to say it was probably taken the cue from the President of the United States, who established a whole initiative across the government to combat anti-Semitism. The task force was formed after invitations, just like any other committee in this village.
Okay.
Volunteers, people raise their hands, and
And-
then we're vetted, and then we're invited to serve. And I'm the chair, and we have 4 others who are part of this task force. And this is our second meeting. You're welcome to join the rest of the meetings. And what we're doing right now is going through the tasks that were assigned last time in relation to our mission statement. Our mission statement calls for conducting a survey about their level of awareness and concern about anti-Semitism in our village. You can go to the VMA website and see the minutes of the last meeting, and you can certainly catch up with the beginning of this meeting when those minutes are
That's
posted.
okay. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So now we're going through the question of, to what extent do we feel comfortable about asking the question as part of our survey? Do you feel that and being anti-Israel is like anti-Semitism? So anti-Israel, is it like anti-Semitism, or is it equivalent to? I think that's the question,
Yes.
right? Jessica, is that the way you put it?
Yes, I think that though it's a politically charged question,
Right.
although I
Yeah.
do think given the nature of the Anti-Semitism Committee, it's important to understand it, especially in light of what's going on at present.
Right. I think, yeah, well, I'm comfortable with that. What about everybody else on the task force?
I think it's great to address that kind of tough question head on. I think that part of the response we get will depend on the context, what the other questions in the survey are, and how that question, that politically sensitive question in particular, is worded. So I think the next step, probably, Jessica, you're ahead of us on all of this because you know how to do this stuff, would be to send a draft list of, I don't know, 10 or 20 questions, whatever you've got in mind, to us to actually look at the context and the wording. And I can only tell you how it strikes me when I see it. I think most of the people in this village are allies, even if they're not at the meeting tonight. And I think that we just want to be very careful about the wording, and I'm not telling you anything you don't know. So I'll leave it at that.
I don't hear any objections, Jessica.
And
think they've
Andrew
got
has his hand raised, and then and then I have my hand raised next.
Andrew?
Yeah, just real briefly, I think
Sorry.
just this is
I'll-
it's a great question. I think there are 2 things. One is being anti-Israel the same as being anti-Semitic? is criticizing Israel, akin to being, so they're two different things here, and there's a fine line, and some people will take advantage of not wanting to appear anti-Semitic by attacking Israel or by criticizing Israel, but they might be closeted anti-Semites. But others might want to have the ability to criticize a government and a country for its actions without being challenged and being told that that's anti-Semitic. So it's such a
Right,
sense,
right.
Or even anti-Israel.
Yeah.
Being somewhat critical of what's going on now doesn't necessarily mean you're anti-Israel.
No, and
Right?
yeah, Andrew, I appreciate that. And I was thinking about too, because I don't want to ask two questions, which are obviously, is being anti-Israel anti-Semitic? And I'm not obviously phrasing it the way I would in a survey, versus is being critical of the Israeli government anti-Semitic? I mean,
Right.
I think that we're just trying to understand the general trend of whether or not people are presently considering anti-Israel sentiment to be akin to anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you have to thread the needle a little bit very carefully.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nathaniel, you wanted to add to this
Yeah,
discussion?
I was mainly going to say kind of what Andrew just said, but I'll also just add, and I'm sure Jess is planning on doing this, and I'll just say it for everyone, is like to use the IHRA anti-Semitism definition, which specifies what kind of criticism of Israel would bleed into anti-Semitism. It differentiates the two.
100%, Nathaniel.
Yeah, and I know you're familiar, Jessica, with that definition, so it'd be good to go back to it. Yeah, yeah. Any other points for this discussion? So Jessica, I guess maybe the next step would be for you to create some questions to send to the task force for review, and then we'll bring it up at the next meeting.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to create a working doc, which would also be the actual survey link that we could send out to people, and people can test it.
Good. Okay. Thank you. So next on the agenda is Nathaniel. Can I call you Nate?
Either one's fine. Yeah.
Okay. So as I recall, you were going to work on an article for the VMA newsletter. You're a wonderful writer, by the way, the sample that I've seen. And having read your father's blog, I know where that gene goes. So that's a good assignment for you. Have you made any headway in that direction?
Well, thank you for the compliment. Unfortunately, I'm also a procrastinator, so I haven't made much headway. Can I ask though, the topic of the article, was it intended to be like the history of anti-Semitism as it relates to the village, or was it supposed to be about like personal stories of our residents? And I'm wondering about taking it in a different direction as it relates to the latest events.
I think that's a fine idea.
Okay.
I'm all in favor of personal stories. I really think that that's one of the ways we're going to be able to minimize any anti-Semitism in our midst, is to get to know each other, whether it's personally or through stories. But if you can take it upon yourself to write something about the current situation, maybe how you feel about it from your own background and so on,
and how it's affecting us in our locally in our community.
Yeah. Your school opening, closing, exactly. And so on. Yeah.
So okay. And Michael, are you there? Can you remind me the due date for newsletter submissions?
Yeah, and I saw your email earlier today about
it was a late email. So
yeah, no worries. Yeah, so I tried to get all the articles in the Friday before the last day of the month, and then the newsletter goes out on the first day of the month.
Okay.
I try really hard for that. So if you can give me a week, then that helps me. So
okay. So
but I'm happy to work with you too if you need an extra day or something, just let me know.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So
you.
yeah, I will work on that and submit it to the task force in time to be reviewed, and then submit it to Michael in time for deadline.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So, Leah, I really am dying to know what you have put together for the Hanukkah celebration that we want to propose to the council, hopefully on Thursday.
So I the budget that I'm looking at is under 5,000, so probably between $4,000 and $5,000. I found a tent company that can accommodate us, and that's been a little tricky as well because some of them won't work with concrete; they'll only set up on grass. And I got it priced out to have if it's cold, we can have enclosures on 3 sides. We can have heaters blowing warm air inside. They'll do all. I'll get the tables from them, the chairs from them, white and blue tablecloths. And then I also got some quotes. I personally prefer Baked by El bagels. They're traditional Jerusalem boiled bagels. So I got a quote for, bagel supreme platter with lox and all the fixings, black and white cookies, rugula, and latkes. And I got a quote for face painter. And I thought if we wanted decorations, dreidel games, you can paint dreidels. I thought maybe like a bouncy house or two. I think it depends on the weather. Kids are kids. If it's cold, I think
I would prefer. Yeah. I would prefer games that are appropriate for Hanukkah.
Okay.
So maybe a table where we can have dreidel contests.
Sure.
Where we can sing some songs. Well, I really was hoping the children can be engaged. So let me take a step back for everybody who's not at our last meeting. We decided, and I think the American Jewish Committee would say so, the best way to combat anti-Semitism is to share our values, our holidays, especially the joyous ones. Some of them are really serious, but certainly this one is really joyous and has wonderful ideas to engage children. So we thought that would be a really good launch pad to invite the whole village and the kids and have a Hanukkah party to celebrate light. To me, it's always been a celebration of light. And there's some games we can play that have to do with light. I always give those to my grandchildren, and I know we can find some to bring. I would bring them if they don't need to be part of the budget. So the idea is to have it on December 7th, right?
No, 10th.
Is that
10th,
right in the
10th.
middle of Hanukkah?
10th.
10th. Sorry, 10th. Yeah, the
Sunday.
10th. Yeah, in the afternoon.
Actually, I in my head, I was thinking like
people go to church.
I was thinking like 11 a.m. to like 2 p.m. Seems to usually be like a pretty good time for families, especially if we're doing like bagels and lox, I think. But if that can be adjusted. And yeah, I included dreidel games and things in that quote as well.
Okay. So how do people feel about a Sunday Sunday the 10th at 11 o'clock? Is that respectful of church goers? Is that a good time for families? What do people have as opinions?
This is Marty, and I think that Sunday 11 to 2 is a great time. My question was about.
We can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Mhm.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. My question was about doing it on Sunday the 10th. And the tent and all, Leah, thank you. That's a lot of work you did there, putting that planning together. You are indeed a good planner. All the details, that's what makes things work. But I'm wondering whether La Fleur might be available on December 3rd I'd heard that it might be, and having it indoors in December might be easier than 10. Were you able to check with La Firme on the 3rd or the 17th?
I didn't check on the 3rd or the 17th. I know we can't bring in outside food. And I think, well, I think food is a pretty important component. But I'm happy to do what the majority wants.
Well, I think
Okay.
if we have
That was
tents
just
in
my
there, we
question
can be
about
warm.
Indoors might be less expensive. And again, we need to have the right food. Food makes the party. Although this really isn't a party. I think of it, I don't feel much like partying. I'm sure many people don't. I'm just so sad about what's going on and really heartbroken. And I think that the way we should talk about this is a celebration of warmth and light and community and unity, a celebration of warmth and unity, and sharing the Jewish traditions, which I think are just so incredibly deep and powerful. I love that.
Yeah,
And
and actually,
but let's
I'm sorry.
do it indoors. Just being a pragmatist here. If you would check on that, I'd be grateful.
Sure. And then another thing I was going to say, the impetus for doing this was also to attract people, rather than I think education is very important, but I think also people don't want to be talked at, and so giving them, using this opportunity of the Jewish celebration of light and the symbolism of Hanukkah, and once we have people there, using that as a platform to share why we decided to proceed with the Anti-Semitism Task Force and have educational materials available for people should they want it. But yes, Naomi, to share our culture and our games and traditions.
Right.
I think it is important to have some educational material there, and maybe have our esteemed chairwoman Naomi do a 5-minute or 3-minute welcome and introduction that actually says a little bit about what the task force is about, because this really would be like our launching event, like you said, Naomi. And I think it's important to have at least that kind of like grounding, serious moment, and then go to the celebration and the joy of the children and all the things that we love about Hanukkah. So I think it's a combination program like that, with mostly fun and great food, but there's an undertone of seriousness, certainly in my heart at this moment. And I don't know what'll be happening between now and December, but I do include that component. And thank you for thinking about the educational materials. Maybe there's a pamphlet we can get from the AJC about Judaism 101 or Judaism for kids or something like that. So I
Or at
don't
least
know if that's
Hanukkah.
yeah.
Yeah. And there's
Some
some songs
information people
we can
take
learn
home.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I see lots of hands up, so I'm going to shut up and let you all speak.
Yeah. David, I wanted to ask you, if I may call upon you to unmute. Do you know of anyone who could tell us about Hanukkah very passionately, but very briefly?
Well, there are lots of people who could do that.
Okay.
I mean, I can't identify someone right
No,
now.
I understand, but I was
Certainly
thinking we'd have not
certainly someone
necessarily a rabbi. Maybe Janet knows somebody in her synagogue, but someone who could just tell us about the celebration.
There's probably I'm thinking of like my dear Professor Ned Rosenbaum, may his memory be a blessing, who was the professor of Judaic Studies at University of Kentucky, of all places. And
Wow.
I did this for Hillel. I did a Hanukkah party as the president of Hillel at University of Kentucky for all the student body, and he told a very energetic and engaging story of Hanukkah. And I'm sure that we can find a professor locally who can do this.
Right. Okay. We will put our heads together around that. It's, just to bring it alive, it's such a beautiful, beautiful holiday. And I would not be up to the task. I hope to find someone who is.
Naomi, can we go to hands?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yes, hands.
Katie has hers, and Justin, me, and Michael.
Yes, please. Katie, what would you like to say?
You're muted.
Sorry. I just had a question, and this could be ignorant. I'm sorry. So would part of the celebration be lighting the menorah, and then
Yes.
that's done more at like, does the sun have to set? Because in December the sun sets early, like around 5 o'clock. So would you think about maybe doing it later, like 2 to 5 in that time frame? Because I think that would be a really exciting part to observe, because that's what I was just wondering. And that was my question. Sorry.
Good question.
That is a good question. Does anybody have any other questions? Do you want to, Nathaniel, while we ponder an answer to that, did you want to ask something?
I did, but Jess was before me, so
Okay,
I'll let her go.
thank you for keeping track.
Thanks, Suzanne. I don't claim to be an expert on Jewish liturgy, but I don't believe you're supposed to technically light the menorah before sunset. So ideally, we would have an evening event if we were to do that, presumably indoors given the time of year. My thought was, Leah, first, thank you so much for planning and putting all this effort in. I think that makes a lot of sense. I agree that we should have, as Leah, you had planned for Jewish games to try to impart our values and background to people who may not be familiar. But I do think that having a bouncy castle could be a really good drawing point, because we know that children like it. And anti-Semitism and all forms of hatred often begins in childhood. So I think that attracting people with young children is really, really important. So I am for keeping the bouncy castle. I don't mean to make this a point of contention, but I do think it's important that we are perceived as being attractive to people. And I appreciate Marty's sentiment related to celebrations. I think that if we are able to frame this as something that has a Hanukkah component to it, is a holiday we celebrate, and we've celebrated holidays throughout history, including during very perilous times. So I think that it's okay that we have a party for Hanukkah. However we choose to frame it, whether it's as a celebration of light, I think that's okay. At least I'm personally okay with it. So I just wanted to express that.
I'm okay with all the above. We'll just have to figure out the timing. What day of the holiday, which day of the Hanukkah holiday is the 10th?
The Sunday, I think.
Yeah, a Sunday, but what day of the
Oh,
Third night.
The third, I
night.
think.
third.
the 3rd? Okay.
Yeah. So did someone say
No,
December
10th,
3rd was
fourth,
under
fourth,
consideration?
Sorry?
I thought I heard someone say December 3rd was under consideration, and
That's
that- no?
before Hanukkah.
right.
That's before Hanukkah, and the 17th is afterwards, right?
I think I think it ends. I think the 17th is the last day, I want to say.
Okay, well,
9, 10.
if we did on the 17th, we can light all the candles.
The 10th is the fourth day of the fourth night.
So that's right in the middle.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. So it's December 7th through 15th. So the 17th is too late for sure.
Okay, the 17th is not in Hanukkah anymore. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Correct.
Right. So it sounds to me like
But
if we want to light the candles, we need to make it in the middle of the holiday, which is the 10th. Right?
The 10th makes sense.
Yeah. And sundown is what time around there? Around 5?
I will look it up.
So
Exactly.
what about little kids? Will they last that long?
Well, I mean, I don't expect people, well, I don't know.
5:17. Sorry, Leah, I didn't mean to interrupt. 5:15 p.m. ish is typically sundown in December.
Okay.
Here it says 4:46 on December 10th.
We could do a 2-hour
So-
party. Maybe 3 hours is too long. I'd have to rethink food. I don't know. Do people want bagels at
At
3
dinner.
p.m.? Okay. Another thing I was thinking about, because I'm trying to think of the Hanukkah parties I've been to. I just remembered one that we went to, like somewhere way out in Rockville. They had like they actually it was indoors, and they did have a bouncy house. They had an area where you could like paint your own dreidel, and you know, some other things with menorahs and stuff. But then they also had like pre-made little balls of challah, and so each little kid or each child could have their own little like aluminum container with a ball of dough, and then they could braid their challah and then take it home and bake it. So that could be a really fun activity too.
Okay. But the hour, you know, if we want
Oh,
to.
sorry, yes.
So,
So-
candlelighting is at like 5:15. I mean, I don't want to like offend anyone and like speak out of turn, but like I don't know like how strict, you know, our village has to be about the exact time of candlelighting. It can be 5:15, and any time after is generally like the rule. So like we could start the party well before 5:15, and that could be, you know, that could be in the middle of the party or something like that. So it could be like an afternoon into early evening type of situation.
Yeah, 3 to 5. 3 to 5 would be good, you know, and you know that's a good time for kids. Parents need to find something to amuse their kids on Sunday afternoons, and 3 to 5 would be, I think,
Or
a very
four to
workable
4 to
time.
6 or 4 to 6.
I
Yeah,
think 6 we're getting
4 to
into
6.
dinner time. So I think ending it by 5 would be good. So whether it's
Ending
2
at
to 5 or 3 to 5 would be ideal, personally.
Okay.
And Michael, you got your hand up. You've been so patient. What's up?
Yeah, just a few comments that might be helpful here. One, the Community Engagement Committee, and I know there was a conversation about collaborating with them at the last meeting.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone was here. If you were, I apologize. At the end of the meeting, they discussed doing a holiday event at their community engagement meeting, including, and they were thinking of doing an evening meeting, evening event with a lantern walk around the village and kind of making it multi-denominational, secular. But the idea of collaborating with you came up again at that meeting. So maybe you all can connect and discuss that, and maybe it could be on the same day or something. I think there's some overlap there. And I feel you on the tents issue. You can use grass tents, which are cheaper. I'm saving the village $400 by doing grass tents for the Halloween event. But then you need a park permit. So if you have a park permit and you're doing it on the grass field, you can use different types of tents. But I was wondering also, where's the location you were thinking about for this event?
Turner.
Yeah, the cul-de-sac. Okay, yeah. So you could move it onto the grass, and that would be possible. So you can use other vendors there. And if you want to talk through vendors, we have a list of vendors that we use for all the events, and so I'm more than happy to work with you on that or share
Thanks.
contacts.
Good.
Thank you.
So I think we agreed on 3 to 5 in the afternoon, and we're going to try to do it on the grass if we can get a permit soon enough. But all of that depends on the approval of the council. And because of the timing, if we don't do it in October, at the October meeting, which is on Thursday in a couple of days, then we're going to lose a whole month. So the question is, how quickly can we put a proposal together to present at the council meeting? And can we put this idea, this proposal, before the council on its agenda? I'm asking, oh, somebody's raising their hand. Unless, who's that? Who did you raise? Whose hand is
Michael?
raised? Yeah,
And Janet.
Jen.
Oh,
I'm
Janet,
sorry.
you're.
I actually meant to just add on to the previous conversation. So
Please do.
I was just going to suggest like having jelly donuts and latkes and just make it a just traditional afternoon thing. That way kids are fed, but it's, you know, a lot less expensive. But that's
Okay, yeah. Bagels in the, I love bagels. I don't know if they work well in the afternoon. So donuts, what do you think, Leah?
Um, I prefer to not only do latkes and sufganiot, just because I just like to feed people. I like people to be fed. I'm sorry, like, but that makes me think about this is like
Don't
gross,
laugh,
but
Andrew, don't laugh.
yeah. Well, and I was just thinking of that grandmother who survived when Hamas came into her home and she fed them. Did you see that story?
You fed the
She
Hamas?
fed them. Yeah,
That is so wonderful.
yeah, and they didn't harm her. Because like she knew like people can think more clearly on a full stomach.
No.
Wow.
Is that why we feed our kids so avidly?
Yes,
So they would think clearly?
For me, yes, but Andrew, you didn't hear the story?
No. And I was just giggling because of there's a stereotype about a Jewish mom, right?
Yes.
The only mom
Feeding
that
everybody.
experience. It's overfeeding, not just
Yeah,
food.
Yes, exactly. There will be leftovers.
But to answer Naomi your question, and you know, I have to talk to Katie and Jeff. I mean, you know, when this task force was put together, obviously, the event, at least one event that was stipulated within the resolution was focused on educating, right? And so this is educating in many ways, right?
Absolutely.
I don't know if we, you know, and I don't know to what extent we thought it would require a huge budget for an event versus, you know, inviting someone to a home and host an event to educate friends and neighbors. But it's something, look, we have a council meeting on Thursday. If you can put together a budget by tomorrow, we could try and add, and I look to Michael, to the budget, you know, an agenda item saying task force event and budget, and we can discuss that during our council meeting. I think we should be nimble enough and flexible enough to do that. And even if it's just a ballpark, it would have to be, if it doesn't go through the community engagement committee, which has a budget for the year, it would have to be us tweaking the budget and adding to the village budget. Michael, I don't know if I'm.
Yeah, there actually is already a slot for each committee and task force to give a report. So during that time, you could give a verbal, you know, request to the council for some funding.
Okay.
I can send you the budget that I have.
Yeah. So, and I mean, we don't have to, you know, it doesn't have to be, okay, you said it's only going to cost this amount, and that's all we can, you know, we can be flexible and work with you guys. So let's do that, have a ballpark, and when Naomi gives her report during our meeting, she can mention that you guys can talk about it. You could share it with us beforehand, just so we see the ballpark or not. We can, you know, we'll figure it out. That's not going to be, hopefully that's not.
Okay.
Naomi, I can send it to you tomorrow.
Thank you. Can you come to the meeting on Thursday?
What time is it at?
7:30.
I don't know. Hang on. Sorry, I don't have my calendar in front of me, so it's hard for me to say.
Just in case there are questions about this event. That, by the way, does not, as you hopefully saw the scope of work that I've submitted as part of the meeting today. It does not mean we're not going to have a real quote unquote education and training program, which, by the way, we can do for free. I mean, Sue Saltov offered to do a Zoom with training and education and resources by the American Jewish Community that could be of minimum budget. So I'm not sure that we have
at least one event, Naomi, and I like the way you guys are thinking outside the box, because I was thinking it would be something academic like that, but that's no fun. But
I don't think you can
it'll be interesting, but this is tying in the kind of a fun and social experience.
Right. I don't think that lecturing people about anti-Semitism goes very far. Our thinking is really more of a social kind of getting to know your neighbors and your your traditions. And part of the scope of work, by the way, that I'm suggesting that we've discussed at the task force is inviting neighbors to Sabbath Friday nights, to Passovers, to other kinds of holidays in which we expose our neighbors to our traditions. And so it's really in that vein that we want to launch the task force activities with this holiday event. So, okay, I don't think we have any other questions, or do we, about the Hanukkah party, Hanukkah celebration?
I wanted to ask Marty, were you able to connect with the Novaks?
Yes, the Novak said that they love what we're doing, but unfortunately can't make their house available on the 10th, and just send hugs to everybody. And sorry, they
Okay.
can't do that. The other thing that was suggested was possibly the Chevy Chase Town Hall, which is not really so accessible. I mean, people might come across Brookville Road to go to that, but I don't know what it costs to rent that. And then the possibility of changing a date, like the 3rd or the 17th. But I think, the 10th is right in the middle of Hanukkah, so I think that's all right to stay with that.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I think that we've explored our options pretty thoroughly, unless there's somebody else who has a big house in the village who'd like to step up. So I don't know. But in the meantime, I think this is a good plan, and you could just, send everybody sort of your notes on it. I think that I'm feeling like this is the most positive conversation I've had all week in terms of what's going on with the world. And so this is actually lifting my heart. So thank you.
Yes, we need light. We need light in our world. So next on the agenda, unless there's further discussion about the Hanukkah party, is the draft scope of work that I shared with the task force. Have you all had a chance to look at it?
Yep, I have only one addition to it. And Jessica, this is something you suggested that I've just loved at the last meeting, which was the idea of maybe in the spring arranging a couple of trips down to the Jewish museums downtown.
Yes.
That we
Yes.
sponsor that. And I didn't see that in the scope of work, so I would ask that we put that in the spring, date to be determined. But Jessica, I really like that idea.
Yeah.
And the other idea that I just love, Natalie, is the one that you have about, having Jewish families in the village invite neighbors over for a Sabbath dinner. I think that is something that is so doable and so positive and just so down to earth that I just feel like it's a brilliant idea. And I love working with smart people. What can I say? Thanks to you both. So please include Jessica's museum tours somewhere in the spring.
Yeah.
That's it.
And then, by the way, I know, does anybody know Lauren Strauss? Lauren
No.
Strauss is a professor of Jewish history, and she lectures at American University and elsewhere. She was pivotal in developing the Jewish Museum in DC, and maybe I can get her to give us a tour.
Wow, that'd be cool.
I'm sure they have like docents if we tell them
Yeah.
ahead of time.
Yeah.
You know,
There's some outstanding people. My cousin on the board and was also very active in that. And there's some fabulous docents for that museum that
Good.
I'm positive we could arrange to get.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
you're talking
Okay.
about the new one, like the Jewish Museum of DC, Yeah,
Capital
okay.
Jewish Museum.
Yeah, the Capital Jewish Museum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's add that to the scope of work. Does anybody else have any suggestions, anything you want to correct? Do you want more time to look at it before I submit it to the council for their review?
I would love another few days, especially because I
Okay.
was thinking about how the past 10 days might affect the scope of work. I really think that
Okay,
might be
okay.
thinking.
So, yeah, I think if we can launch ourselves with the Hanukkah celebration, then the rest can be discussed next time at our next meeting. And then we can present it to the council at its November meeting.
Sounds
Okay,
good to me, Natalie. Sounds good.
okay. All right. And if anybody wants to see the scope of work who's on, it was included in the packet with the agenda that Michael passed around to the village. But if you want your own copy, I'll be happy to send it to you. It describes what we propose to do until June, when we have to submit a final report to the council. Okay, now let's see. I think our agenda calls for setting the next date. So if we want some more time to review the scope of work, and we want to have time to then submit it to the council meeting in November. When is the council meeting in November, Michael?
I believe it's going to be the 16th. It's always the third Thursday of the month.
16th. Okay. Mondays seem to be a good time for us to meet. Is that a possibility in the next couple of weeks?
Works for me.
Pardon me, could you repeat which Monday? I cut out for me.
Well, let's see. Let's look. We do Monday the 6th. If we, yeah, otherwise we're really bumping against. We could do Monday the 13th.
That's a little too close for comfort. I think let's do Monday the 6th of
Yeah.
December or November.
that-
Monday, November 6th.
Is that comfortable for everybody?
Mm-hmm.
That
We
should
can,
work.
Nathaniel and Jessica come back to us with
Fine, that's fine.
with
Thank
your
you.
assignments, and Leah can fill us in with more details and hopefully report that the council approved our Hanukkah celebration. So Monday the 6th at 8:30, that seems to be a good time for everybody, especially mothers and fathers. All right. Any other comments?
I have one final report.
Yes.
One of my assignments was to do the minutes, which I did. The other
Right.
was to coordinate with the CEC, the engagement
Oh,
committee.
yes.
And I
Yes.
missed the engagement committee meeting because I had a little family thing of my own that I had to deal with my brother. But I was able to connect with Keith, the chair of that community engagement committee, the next day, and he had a wonderful talk. And he says he's at the ready to assist us in any way we need, and just let him know he will be more than happy to support and coordinate anything this task force does. And
Okay.
bravo to us. So I commend you.
right.
I commend his message to us.
Yeah, would you
Anyway,
let him
just-
know? Would you let him know that we are zeroing in with council,
Yes.
hopefully council approval
Uh-huh.
on the 3rd, on the 10th?
Yeah, he knows the general outlines, and I can get back to him and coordinate on
Yeah.
the details. Once we
Okay.
see, Leah, once you put together something for a presentation at the council meeting, I will share it with Keith and the community engagement committee. So happy to
Great.
be our
Okay. Yeah.
liaison
So,
on.
okay. Perfect. Because I spoke with him too, but you can be the liaison, and any information I have, I'll just send to you. Is that okay, Marty?
That's perfect. Glad
Okay.
to help.
Thank you.
Jeff has his hand up, Nomi.
Yes, Jeff, please.
Hi, thanks so much. I'll make this super quick. First, just an update. So you may recall from the last meeting we have, I expect to have a check-in with County Council member Friedson and his one of his members of the staff, as well as some representatives from various municipalities. So I'm going to do a kind of just a sanity check to see if there's anyone out there who may have started their task force, or any basically what the word on the street is. And I would, regardless of that, I think VMA is in a position to be a leader, and so I will give you a quick update on that at the next meeting. And then the final comment I just want to share, and it's addressed to everyone, but particularly Nathaniel and others who took the call with me. And I know, Naomi, then you spoke to Arthur, but just on the questions and issues that you had about creating a statement. And I just want to share my heartfelt thoughts to you and everyone, recognizing the times and the emotions. And it was a day where I know that for any of us who had kids who were going to some of these day schools, we're getting, all these announcements about global jihad and all these issues. So I know that there is some follow-up there, and perhaps how the this task force is going to address that, the concerns and other things. But I just want to again thank you. The conversation was a difficult one, and I know that we are doing everything we can. And again, I just want to thank you for that.
Yeah, just some background for everybody. What Jeff is referring to is Nathaniel wrote up was it with
Leah wrote it. I helped Leah. Yeah.
Oh, Leah, yeah, Nathaniel wrote a beautiful statement about standing by Israel, and I wanted to know if the council would issue it, and the answer was that it's not the kind of thing the council does. So we did not push it. We can do it individually. I have a sign in my yard, so does Nathaniel, so does Janet. We can, and David, we can do our own thing and create a presence in our own community about Israel for now. And things are changing every minute. Go ahead.
I know it's like, it's a small thing, but I was driving on Western Avenue the other day and I saw someone who tied blue and white ribbon around a tree in their front yard. And it's, we're only 15 million people in the world.
Yeah, I think that's another beautiful way to do it, is to tie a blue and white ribbon. You don't have to have a sign, just to show some compassion for what's happening. I for one, being Israeli, I've not been agreeing about all the things they've done as a policy, as a government, but I am crying all the time for what is happening there. And I do stand by Israel right now. So, Jeff, you reminded me about something that we really need to get started on. It was to contact the other communities to see if and what they're doing, so that we can start the collaboration train and see if we can do something big together, or if we can invite each other to things. It's too soon for us to invite them to Hanukkah party, which I think should be just for the residents anyway. But I'm wondering if we can cut up the list in some way, and if I can send people 2 or 3. There's a list of how many, Michael, are there? A list about 15 municipalities that have signed on to do something around anti-Semitism. Maybe not that many.
I think it was 14, but I could be wrong.
14. Okay. Actually, I might just email them. Andrew, you've been in touch with Joel at the Chevy Chase Village, right? I don't know if Andrew's still with us.
He might have stepped away.
Yeah.
I thought that was with the town.
And I just saw Joel on Friday over candle lighting. So
Yeah.
I know that there's contact, but I know Andrew knows him very well.
Yeah, I think that Andrew said that they had not started on any particular thing yet, but we probably should know if they have any plans. So over time, I'll try to contact. I'll just take those emails and give it a try and see if I can connect with those 13 municipalities, if we're one of them, and see how far I get before our next meeting.
Perfect. And I'll circle back with you in short order, Naomi, if I hear any updates from others, or quite frankly, in a position of leadership to start it and spark it in other places. Okay.
By the way, there are people who trip over my name and call me Naomi sometimes. Maybe the easiest thing to do is to just call me by my Hebrew name, which is Nomi. So either way, Nomi or Naomi works.
Thank you, Nomi.
Okay, so hearing no other suggestions, ideas, are we ready to close the meeting? Do I hear, do I hear,
Second.
someone, you second? Who seconds?
I second, Marty here.
Okay. All right, and it's what time now? 9:47.
We did
Thank you
good.
for-
We did good.
We did good. We covered a lot. Yeah. Thank you all. It's such a pleasure to work with you.
You too.
Yeah.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, everyone.
Lila Tov.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Laila Tov means